Please pray with me, Spirit of wisdom. May the truth be spoken, may the truth be heard, we ask. Amen. There's another song I was thinking of last night as I was finishing my sermon. It's that old Beatles tune. What would you think if I sang that tune? Just me and never walk down, right? I get by with a little help from my friends. Right? Remember that one? Some of you? There we go. Anyway, we all have stories of friends. Good friends, bad friends, friends that let us down, friends that have held us up. Lennon McCartney's song is true. We all need a little help from our friends. One of the things I try and find out when I'm working with someone who's in distress is what friends, what kind of supports they have. Because the kind of people we surround ourselves with make a big difference to the choices we make and the feelings we have as we live our lives day to day. Birds of a feather do tend to flock together. And so it's important to be aware of what kind of birds we want to fly with. I used to tell my kids, you can be fascinated by brilliant people and be impressed by people with great talents, but don't make close friends and don't date people that aren't kind. It will save you a lot of problems. Some of us know what it's like to go into work with a smile on our face and jump in with a real jump to our step, only to be met with someone negative, a negative Nancy or a grumpy Gordon who's always complaining about this thing or that, and suddenly our mood plummets from 9 out of 10 to 4 or 5. We have that influence on people. We are always in a state of becoming. Some of us know what it's like to be around a person who's constantly judging others, and we walk away from a meeting with them and we think, wow, I wonder what they're saying about me. The people we surround ourselves have a tremendous influence over how we feel. That doesn't mean we don't reach out to people who are in a difficult position. We don't reach out to those who are negative or difficult, but we have to monitor how much time we spend with people who are negative and difficult. We've got to take responsibility for that. But the right kinds of friends, friends who are respectful and fair, they bless us in more ways than we can anticipate. Our friends have great influences even over our moods and emotions, and they influence our choices. That's what Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith realized when they started on the road to recovery from alcohol addiction. These founders of the AA movement realized that central to its success would be creating groups and a whole new circle of influence, new friends. Bill and Bob knew that if recovery was possible, it would be greatly assisted with a little help from our friends. But long before John Lennon came up with this song, Jesus knew its truth, as we see in our scripture reading today. One of the first things he does when he starts his ministry is to surround himself with good people. These are not people who are perfect, but they're people with a good heart. Last Sunday we looked at him calling some fisher people. He probably knew them from down in Galilee area, but today he's traveling on and he's calling a tax collector, Levi, to be a disciple. It's a classic Jesus story. He invests his time and attention in a tax collector, someone that society would have written off as greedy, as a Roman sympathizer, someone everybody shunned. But Jesus always is looking under the surface. He's looking deeper than the presenting social norms. He always knows that the heart of the matter is the matter of the heart, and so until you get to know somebody's heart, you really don't know them. And so he offered respect and friendship to many outcasts who joined his movement and embraced a newfound dignity in joining a community of friends committed to loving and caring for each other. That's the central feature of the Jesus movement, creating a community of friends where we are safe and our gifts are accepted and we can help one another. And that, of course, is the business of the church today. All the heroes I really know had a cast of characters with them, helping them out, lifting them up. Terry Fox had his brother and his mom riding with him in the van, mile after mile after mile. rock superstar singing for his release from prison that eventually turned the tide in turning public opinion from seeing him as a terrorist to seeing him as a freedom fighter. It takes a cast of friends. Moses would have been dead if it weren't for two midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, who defied the Pharaoh by refusing to wrap his umbilical cord around his neck to kill him and then pretend he was dead at birth. They spared his life. His mother and sister watched over him on the river. Pharaoh's daughter defied her dad to care for him. And it was Moses' brother Aaron and sister Miriam who helped him do what he needed to do. We think of Moses, but there'd be no Moses without this cast of friends and family that were supportive. The great King David had his life saved from the paranoid King Saul by his best friend Jonathan, Saul's son. So you never know where friends are going to come from. You can't predetermine whether somebody can be a good friend. You got to get to know their hearts. And without his friends, Jesus' message and movement would have died with him. We're the spiritual ancestors of Jesus. We're his physical body in the world today. And we need each other too. No matter how odd or socially awkward or even irritating at times we might be. That's the magic that grows a church. Being able to get to know one another and reach out to people that you don't know. That's a little harder. Getting to know them. Loving God, loving each other, as the song went. I'm proud of the support and kindness that you show to people who are new to the community here. Now you reach out with folks and talk to them at fellowship time after or before. And get to know them and show that you care about them. I draw encouragement from other churches I know who are doing this and living out this Jesus message of let's be friends. I have a friend, John, at Hillhurst in Calgary. It's a church like this one that puts kindness and friendship above all else. John tells a great story about a fellow named Smokey who showed up in his church about 8 years ago. Smokey and his buddy were homeless. They lived under the bridge. And yet the congregation embraced them. And one Sunday, a very prestigious multi-millionaire member of the congregation said, "John, have you ever been to a wedding?" And he said to Smokey, "Have you ever been to a wedding?" And Smokey says, "No, I never have." And he says, "Well, my daughter's getting married. Would you like to go to her wedding?" And he said, "Oh, I'd love that." He says, "Now, can you stay sober until the end of the wedding?" And Smokey thought, says, "Yes, I can." He says, "Okay, well, you come to my wedding. Now go see my wife. She's going to get you fit for a tux." Well, he'd not only never been to a wedding, he'd never had a tux on before. So the day of the wedding comes, Smokey and his friend arrive, proudly in tuxes. After the wedding, Reverend John sees Smokey and his friend approaching the bride and giving her something, and he sees that the bride's starting to cry. So John figures he better go over and see what's going on. And she showed John this big, beautiful wedding card. It was like that size that Smokey and his friend had gotten. And they had gotten close to 100 signatures visiting all the coffee shops, bars, and liquor stores that they traveled through regularly. And this wonderful, beautiful, unexpected wedding present of this card just struck the bride as so beautiful. A homeless man's generosity and kindness and thoughtfulness. And that's the promise and gift of the gospel. You never know what somebody's capable of if you give them a chance, if you show them some kindness, if you take some time to get to know them. Now, Smokey died last year, and this is what my friend John wrote about him in the Calgary paper. Today, Hillhurst heard the sad news of Paul Wilkinson's death. Many would know him as Smokey. He was a constant figure around Hillhurst for 6 or 7 years. He sat in our pews, he ate lunch in our community, and he was often an outspoken person around the neighborhood. The streets were his home. Paul was, in my opinion, the heart and soul of Hillcrest United Church. He woke us up. He reminded us of the reality of homeless living. For some, Paul was an annoying reminder of dirt, of the dark side of life in the street and the reality of poverty. He was the embodiment of the sadness and destruction of addiction. Some chose to ignore him, but many loved his awkward company in our pews or a brief conversation on a Sunday. For me, he was Christ in our midst. I know some wanted him to wash up and clean up. I appreciated the reminder that the world isn't that way for many. His untidiness assaulted our sanitized lives. Yes, he was annoying at times, but his annoyance was a gift too. He was a reminder that God has come for the least and was made known in the least. I said to him not long ago, "Paul, you get it." He looked at me quizzically. I said, "You get it because you have so little. For us who have so much, it's harder to get the importance of life as a gift." He knew what it was to have little, and he appreciated and shared much. He was extraordinarily generous with what he had. He often handed me a loonie on the street, a percentage of his panhandling. "For the church, Petlin," he'd say. He was one of the first in making a donation to the Red Cross for the firefighters in Fort Mac last June. He often brought small borrowed bouquets of flower for our service on Sunday. He hung our Christmas lights at the church and often helped fold chairs after lunch on Sundays. He was a person of respect for seniors, for veterans, for kids. He recently took time to write a Christmas card for a friend of mine visiting Calvary. He scribbled in it, "Remember, we are all loved by God, even me." At a wedding a few years ago, he took a card and captured 100 of signatures on the card and presented it to the bride and groom, a precious gift. For me this past year, he did the same for my birthday, a card signed by hundreds of street strangers. It holds a special place in my office, beside the miniature Bible he gave me. Perhaps Paul's greatest gift is that he reminded us all about the realness of life. He reminded us all that we have a story and all of us are held in God's love and grace. For me, he speaks of our willingness to be open in a loving community. We will miss him. I will miss him. One Easter morning, he said to me as he walked out the church door, "Thanks for seeing us." A reminder that we often ignore or overlook the street folk, and they, like us, desire to be seen for who we really are, children of God. Today I'm honored to have been seen by Paul, to be called, in his words, his preacher man friend. No greater acknowledgement has ever been given to me in my 28 years of ministry. Our staff and congregation are better people because of Paul Wilkinson's time with us. Our heart aches in grief and gratitude. So go rest in peace, my friends. See you on the other side. We grieve our loss and celebrate your newfound peace. And as we reach out and get to know one another and welcome newcomers, Spirit will work in ways we can't imagine. That's the deal. It's as simple. It's not easy, but it's as simple as that. I finished with a reflection of a writer, Robert Ludlum, and he wrote about watching a bunch of kids play hide and seek. And one kid was really good at hiding. And he kept thinking to himself, "Kid, be found, because the other kids are going to give up looking for you and went off and leave you." And that's what they did. And so it's easier sometimes for us to hide ourselves than to be found. But Jesus calls us to get found, to join him in making friends with those God sends our way. On this Valentine's week, as with every week, let love find us.